Hey everybody, this is Everyday Commentary, and I wanted to do another quick video on whether it's better than a Sebenza. So here's the standard that I'm measuring against. This is the Chris Reeves Sebenza 31 in S45VN steel. I paid $375 for this, but I now know that they are going for $425. So that's going to factor in. I mean, it's a more expensive knife. It's $50 more money. You can get a pretty decent knife for $50. So obviously it's not the end of the world, but it is a difference. So we'll see if that impacts it. But up against the Sebenza today is one of my very favorite knives, and a knife I think of as a true peer to the Sebenza, which is this knife. This knife is the Brian Nadeau Sharp by Designs Micro EVO 2. And this knife is a knife designed by Brian Nadeau and produced by Reate Knives. And it is one of the finest knives Reate has ever made. They make a lot of good knives. They make very few great knives. And I think in large part it's because they tend to go a little thick and slabby for their in-house designs. But the OEM work, the OEM work, they tend to do a pretty good job. And it's just that, again, a lot of the people that are using them as the OEM, they're sending them big slabby designs. This is not a big slabby design. As you can see, this knife is a little bit thicker than a Sebenza, but it's mostly due to the contoured handle. The knife itself, the blade itself, is a really nice drop point. And as you can see, let's see if we can match them up. It is exactly the same thickness as the Sebenza. There's no difference. It is a little shorter than a Sebenza, but not significantly so. The knife is a flipper design, unlike the Sebenza, which is very clearly only a thumb stud. You can't really get your finger in there to flip that open with a flick. So it's basically exclusively a thumb stud or a flipper design. The knife obviously is a titanium frame lock with inlays. This knife came in at $375, so what this knife used to be. And so there's a lot of things to compare that are really similar. Fit and finish on this knife is every bit as good as the fit and finish on the Sebenza. This transition between the inlay, in this case I have green micarta scales, green micarta inlay, and the titanium, I don't know if you can even hear that. I mean, it is absolutely fingernail flush. The only way you can feel that there is a difference is that the texture of the material going from this to this changes, but that seam itself is just completely not there. It's great. The machining is fantastic. The blade steel in this is M390, which is a really good blade steel. The blade steel in this is S45VN, which I've now used more extensively. And I have to say, I really like S45VN. So I think it's probably a draw there. The pocket clip here is a sculpted titanium pocket clip. I do prefer the stamped steel pocket clip of the Sebenza. It's not quite as deep carrying. As you can see, that this screw is really right at the end. But in terms of hot spots, this is definitely a worse hot spot than this. Here's the thing that really gets me, and this is why I think this knife is among the best of the Reate made knives. The deployment on this knife is absolutely dialed in. This is the best deployment of any knife I've ever had. It is either open or it is closed, and that is it. It is almost impossible. I think you can get it to fail fire, but it just doesn't do it very often. The knife has, instead of a detent, it has the ramp that Brian Nadeau designed. And basically what happens is, there's like a ramp, and as the blade rides up the ramp and then falls off, it locks in place. So there's not really that detent action. You don't get the, let's see if I can show you. You might get a little bit of that suck closed feeling. Yeah, you get a little bit, but it's not quite as pronounced. But the action is way better. You know, in a detent, you really have a ball that rests inside a hole. And so, you know, not only is it not a sharp corner, but over time it can wear in. And so the ball, the detent ball, is much harder than the surrounding material. As a result, the longer you use your knife and the more, you know, you fidget with it, the more slop is introduced. This has absolutely no slop, and it is effortless. You can do, as long as you push the flipper in, the knife is going to come open. Even if it doesn't, you know, like you could just kind of tap it and it'll go all the way out. Really, really great deploying knife. This is just an incredible knife. I also like the size a little better. It's not significantly smaller than the Sebenza, but it is smaller. It's like, you know, a quarter of an inch smaller, and you really don't lose a lot, as you can see, in blade length. I like the crown spine on the Sebenza better than this spine. I don't think it would have taken much time for them because, as you can see, they put a chamfer on it. So they were clearly thinking about the spine. And the only other thing that I will mention is this flipper tab is a little awkward when the knife is open. It makes it very hard to use this portion of the blade. Now you can do it, you know, you grab the rope and pull it that way. Or if you, but like on a cutting board, not super happy with that. Whereas on this knife, you can get all the way down. I mean, in order for you to miss this back corner, you have to basically be cutting paper on a cutting board. Everything else works really, really well. That being said, I don't really think that's that big of an issue. It's not something that bothers me. And this has a pretty nice sharpening choil, so there's that. Overall, I think that I probably like the Sebenza a little better than the Micro EVO 2.0, but this is an absolutely insane and great knife. Stacked up against each other, I think that this is probably a better value than the Sebenza. Obviously, it's $50 cheaper, but I think that the features that you get, I mean, look, there's very few screws. There's like one screw on this side and 1, 2, 3 screws on this side. Whereas the Sebenza, you know, you have 3 screws on every side and 4 on this side. There are at least 3 screws on every side. You have 4 on this side. So this is just a really well-made, well-built production knife. It's not available, which is an issue, but it's a great knife. So other than preference, I would have to say I think that the Micro EVO 2.0 is a better knife than the Sebenza.